entire empire of destruction comes crashing down, all because of one little change.
Hi, it's Mo. It is Friday, July 3rd. No, it's not Friday. I have started my May book for the TBR Spin, which is Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Coopersmith. So I am super far behind. Obviously, I keep slipping behind. I have not been able to catch up this year with the TBR Spin. If you're unfamiliar with the TBR Spin, it is a super fun booktube TBR busting game. It was created by Sarah at Freshly Read Books and Jill at the Book Billy. The basic concept is that you pick 12 books at the start of the year, and each month Jill or Sarah spin a wheel with prompts on it. The prompts lead us to pick one of the books off of our stack. So in January we had 12 books. We spun the wheel, had a prompt, figured out what book we wanted to read, and then in February we had 11 books. We spun the wheel, we found out what prompt we got, and it led us to pick a book, and in March we had 10 books, and etc., etc. So like I said, I'm behind. It's July. I saw that Sarah put out the July prompt already. The prompts are really cool because it is, like I said, it is a prompt wheel, and the prompts come off once we use them, so you never repeat a prompt. The prompts are much more up for interpretation this year than they were last year, so it's much easier to pick a book off your stack. It's never too late to start. If you want to start now, go back and watch the May prompt and read a book with me. If you want to pick books for June, if you want to pick books for July, use the corresponding amount of books, watch Jill or Sarah's video depending on what month you choose, and pick a book to read. I vlog all of my TBR Spin books, and at the end of each video I watch the following month's prompt. At the end of this video we'll watch the June prompt and pick a book for June. And in May I got Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Coopersmith. I honestly don't even remember what the prompt was anymore because I picked it so long ago. I'm actually already just a little over halfway through this book. I started it a few days ago, but I was getting ready to leave on a trip. I'm currently in Ohio, so I wasn't able to film anything. I haven't filmed anything for like a week or more. I'm very behind on filming. I am really liking this one so far. Like I said, I'm a little more than halfway through, and this book is definitely not what I thought it was going to be, but I don't know if I really thought it was going to be anything. So I picked up this book at a Goodwill, but it was also a thrift book at some point, and it was also a library book at some point. So it's definitely had a long life in its few years, going from shop to shop and place to place and person to person to read. This book was originally published in 2021, and this one was up for, I believe, the Women's Prize that year. It has some maps, which is cool. It has a list of characters, which is neat. I'm not sure like what I thought this book was going into it. I kind of thought it was going to be like more of a linear intergenerational tale. It is an intergenerational tale in a way, but I don't know if it's necessarily a familial intergenerational tale yet. So the book starts off with our ostensibly main character, Winnie, who is a Vietnamese American woman who has moved to Vietnam to teach English. She never felt like she fit in with her family. She never felt like she fit in America, being part Vietnamese. She doesn't feel like she fits in Vietnam, being part American. She thought she would be fine teaching English, but when she got there, she discovers she really doesn't like to teach English, and she kind of flubs all her classes, like she kind of just coasts on them and lets her students do whatever they want. The book is all told in chapters that are like the place, and then so many months before the disappearance, or so many months after the disappearance. So our opening setting is June 2010, Saigon, 9 months before Winnie's disappearance. That's the first chapter, and then we follow Winnie a little bit, but very quickly, only a couple of pages later, we have another chapter in the same timeline, March 2011, Saigon, the day of the disappearance, and we meet another character who knows Winnie, who has been living with her recently, so not long before the disappearance. And then we skip to the Highlands, 18 years before the disappearance. We go back and forth between Saigon and the Highlands. There's 7 months before the disappearance, 10 months before the disappearance. There are chapters that are years before the disappearance. There are chapters that are decades before the disappearance. And it's hard to tell if the disappearance is all Winnie's disappearance or if there are other people disappearing as well in the book, because we are jumping around a lot in time and we are following quite a large cast of characters. There's Winnie, there's Long, which is the person that she moves in with at some point eventually in the story. There is Spin, who is a friend of Long's when he was young. There's Long's brother. There's a ghost hunter fortune teller. There's his assistants. So it's a lot of people and a lot of time periods and a lot of things that are happening, and it's hard to tell if the story is revolving around Winnie. Like I said, she is the main character as far as I can tell, but I also feel like this book is doing something playing with the idea of women and women's lives and playing with the idea of the interchangeability of generations and the similar stories that happen throughout different time periods. So it's hard to know what's going on. I was really into it for a few days, basically until I came here, and now I've kind of slowed down on it, but I think that's just traveling, and I've also read a couple of books in between, some audio books like on the plane and stuff. So like I think I'm just got out of the habit of reading it for a couple, like 2 days. But like I said, I'm a little more than halfway through, so I think I will make it through this probably while I'm here this week. And then at the end, I took a picture of my TBR Spin stack, so we'll pick our book for June. Let me know if you've read Build Your House Around My Body. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know if it was confusing to you. It's a little confusing to me in that there are so many characters and it's hard to keep track of them. But on the other hand, like, I think I understand what's happening, like, for the most part. This book also has a lot of like cultural spirituality. I like hate to say magical realism, because what magical realism book have you ever read that it wasn't cultural spirituality? Like any book by an Indigenous person or about Indigenous cultures that it has magical realism, that's not magical realism. That is, religion or cultural knowledge or whatever. And I kind of feel the same way about this book, because there are mystical elements, magical elements that are happening, but they are not necessarily fake, or they are not necessarily to not be believed, or they are not necessarily not believed by the characters. They are genuine things that are happening to these characters, and they're from their culture and from their experience and from their religion. So yeah, cultural spirituality, which I was not expecting. I didn't realize that this was going to have like magic in it, which is exciting. I think because of that aspect, this book reminds me a little bit of Yangtze Chu's books. Hers are much more like mythic, epic, fairy tale-esque. This is a little fairy tale-esque. Magical books, and this is much more grounded in the reality that we know, but with magical elements and with like unsettling elements that aren't necessarily magic, but are about like cultural disassociation and cultural differences and feeling out of place, which I think magic sometimes gives you that feeling like you're off kilter because you're not used to the magic that's happening. That's something new to you, or something that you're unfamiliar with, or something that's unexplained. And I think some of those feelings of cultural disassociation can be the same. When I read some more, I'll let you know. I'm back from Ohio, and I have finished Build Your House Around My Body. This one took me a really long time to read. I mean, I was reading this for like definitely over a week, maybe closer to 2 weeks. It is quite long. It's 178 pages. I mean, it's 378 pages. And because it jumps around so much in time, because we see Winnie, because we see Long, because we see the fortune teller and all these different people throughout these different times and different timelines. Martin, do not eat that plant. Get out of there. Get out. I think it just wasn't a super cohesive read. And I think that the length and that jumping around aspect definitely made it like less than a perfect read for me. I also think that everything in this book and everything you know about reading books like this lead you to believe that there's going to be this huge payoff at the end, that every thread is going to become connected and that all the questions will be answered. And that definitely didn't happen in this book. Not every question was answered. Not every thread was connected. You did see different people from different times coming together at certain points, but it wasn't like the final amalgamation, cohesive payoff that I was expecting, or I guess hoping for. More that I just thought the book was leading that way, so I thought that's what I was going to get, and it wasn't what I got. I did really enjoy this book. Oh my god, these cats are being so bad. He does not want to play with you. He's not trying to play. Looks like he's trying to play. He's acting like he's trying to play, but he's not trying to play. I really like the writing in this, though. I really like the descriptive nature. I really liked the portrait of Saigon and rural Vietnam that this painted. I enjoyed a lot of the characters. I liked that everyone was very nuanced. There was no pure evil or pure good. I liked a lot of the imagery, and I liked some of the exploration of like women's roles and women's bodies and how men treat women, how society treats women, the unfamiliarness of like your own body, the being out of place in space and time and your own person. All of those things were really interesting. I don't know if any of them were fully talked about, fully explored, fully dived into in a way that I wanted them to be or that I thought they should be. And I said this in my wrap up. I was surprised that this was a women's prize book. Like, I think the writing is really good and I think the potential is there, but it just didn't feel cohesive enough to me. It didn't feel done enough to me. It didn't feel polished enough to me to be a women's prize. Now, this is a debut novel, and a lot of the women's prizes books that I've read are books that won the women's prize, like Piranesi. This, I think, was on the list the same time as Piranesi, which was like a very fantasy, mythical, magical, heavy list from what I can tell. But that one had a payoff, and even though it was more confusing, it felt more polished. Like, it felt more done. This felt a little raw and a little like fresh, which is good, but just not as like complete, as done, as like cooked as that book. I would definitely read more by Violet Cooper Smith. I really enjoyed it. I think partly one of the reasons that it wasn't great was my reading experience, because I started it before I went on vacation, because it took me so long to read. This was my May book after all, because it took me so long to read once I even started it, because I was traveling, because I think like my reading experience wasn't perfect with this one either. But I did always want to go back to it, and I did always want to find out what happened. I just thought that more of the mysteries would be solved and more questions would be answered, and you'd get that like real solid payoff at the end, which definitely this book is not that. Like, you do not get all the answers. You do not solve all the mysteries. None of that, not none of it, but a lot of it doesn't happen. So I think it's not spoilers to say that. I think it's just fair warning. Like, if I had known that going in that this was going to be a more meandering book and a more ambiguous ending than what it appears to be, I would have had a different reading experience and maybe a better reading experience. But like I said, I would definitely read more from this author. I'm super glad that I read it. I'm super glad that TBR Spin made me read it, because I definitely would not have gotten through this, I don't think, anytime soon, and definitely probably not in a timely manner if it hadn't been for the TBR Spin. So super happy that I got that. Oh, dark green, pretty. I have to pick my next book, so I have to pick the June book. Wait, May, June. Yeah, I think I've been spoiled for what the prompt is for June, so I think I have an idea of what I'm going to pick already, but in a little while I will come back to you and we will watch the June prompt and we will pick my book for June. Let me know if you've read Build Your House Around My Body. Let me know what you thought of it. This would be a good one, I think, for discussion, because like I said, I don't think the themes or ideas were totally fleshed out in this or fully explored the way they could have been, but I think this would be a good good jumping off point for discussion and analyzing those themes and thinking about where this book could have gone and where it does go. I'd be interested to know what people thought of it. Let me know if you've read it, and I'll see you in a few minutes. We're back. It's one day after the last time that I spoke to you. I did not get myself together to watch this video before then. So yes, it is time to watch Jill's TBR Spin for June. It's a 10-minute video, so she probably talks about her book, so we'll watch some of that. We'll pick the next book, but before we do, let's talk about the books that are still on my list. I have The Spirit of Science Fiction by Robert Bolaño, How to Love a Jamaican by Alexis Arthurs, which is short stories, Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq, The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans. This is a novella and short stories. The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali, or Marhen? Is it an it? Does it sound like an H? I don't know. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, and The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Khaw and Richard Kadri. So those are the books left on my TBR Spin list, and it is an exact 3-to-3 split between novels and short stories. So that is cool. This, again, is the June prompt because I'm behind, so let's go ahead and watch Jill's video. Jill mentions reading a Mass Marker paperback for her April spin. Not that she's behind, because she's not, but she's just catching us up on what she was doing and how good a mass market paperback feels, and I feel exactly the same way. I love a mass market paperback. She says she doesn't like the way they look. I love the way they look. I love the cheapness and the tangibility of them that make them something that can get used and used up and thrown away, and then how beautiful they look when they're all beat up. But she loved the feeling, and I love the physical sensation of reading them too. Another thing Jill says is that she decided to switch out her entire stack before this spin, and that is totally okay. If you have not participated in the spin before, if you're participating for the first time this year, or if you're joining us right now, you've made a new stack, but in the future, if you ever want to switch out your stack, of course you can. This is all for fun, and it's just a way to pick books, and it's just a way to read things off your TBR so your TBR goes down. I think I mentioned this, but I was a little bit ruined for this prompt. I always forget that if I go into the Storygraph challenge page and put in my book that I just finished for the last prompt that I read, the other prompts are there. So I did see this next prompt when I did that for Build Your House Around My Body. So I was a little bit spoiled for this. So it is what I thought it was. I wasn't 100% sure. I tried not to look, but it is the book that you most want to read from your stack. So let's do what I don't want to read. I don't want to read The Stationery Shop. I don't want to read How to Love a Jamaican. I don't want to read Split Tooth, I don't think. I don't want to read the Spirit of Science Fiction because I think I want to read short story collection, but it's also, I'm also going to do a Summerween vlog, so like I could read a horror too, but that makes me think that I should read Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado because this is supposedly horror short stories. I've read 1 or 2 other Carmen Maria Machado short stories before, and I really loved them. They were the only things that I've read from her, but I thought, I can only think of one of them, though. I'm pretty sure I read more than one. But if I only read one, even if I only read one, I loved that one. It was a short story that I got with one of my free subscriptions, and it was really, just really good, just really interesting and kind of unexpected. So I think that this one could be a really good one to read. And I kind of feel like right after Build Your House Around My Body, this one might, you know, they might speak to each other a little bit, so that would be fun. This one only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 short stories in it, and I feel like that's also probably a good amount to read in a month, and also a good amount, you know, a good amount to read, not too many, not too long, because with short stories, I can really only ever read like one at a time, because I don't like them to blur together. So I read like one a day and then read something else in between. So I think this one is the one that I'm going to read for the June pick of TBR Spin. I'll come back when I start reading this and we'll do the June vlog, and then at the end of that video we'll pick July. I'm always hoping to get back on track. It is now July 13th, so I could theoretically read this fairly quickly and get back to you with my July pick, and I probably wouldn't make it to the beginning of August. Like, I'll probably miss the August prompt, but I could probably get pretty close and then get back on track for September. I've been behind with this challenge all year, but you know, it doesn't matter. That's the whole point. The whole point is just have fun, and so I definitely encourage you to join. Let me know if you are participating in the TBR Spin. Let me know what book you got for June. Let me know if you decide to play. You could pick this prompt with me, watch the prompt with me. This is an easy prompt to start your stack on, or you could pick 5 books and go look at the July prompt, because we're still in July, and start the TBR Spin that way. You could also pick 12 prompts, go all the way back to the beginning, and start with January. So let me know too if you've read any Carmen Maria Machado. I think she really only has this collection of short stories, her autobiographical memoir-style short story collection, which depicts her relationship with an abusive partner, and then a handful of short stories. Like, I don't think she has a novel out, which seems crazy because the work that I've read from her is, you know, pretty incredible. Definitely stand out. So let me know your thoughts on Carmen Maria Machado as well. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.